Hey YouTube, Common Collector here, and today I'm bringing you guys my current thoughts on what could possibly happen on the upcoming December 2020 ban list. Now there is a lot to discuss here, a lot of cards up for contention on what could go, what could stay, or even what could come off the ban list or get a less restriction on the ban list. So we have a lot to talk about. If you guys are new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like the video if you guys enjoy what you're hearing today, and definitely comment down what you guys think about the upcoming ban list, what you guys think could possibly get hit. Also, just another small announcement for the channel. I did get my first patron on Patreon earlier this week, so I was really excited about that. If you guys are considering Patreon, I would really appreciate it. I would appreciate the support, but I know that times are tough right now, so that is absolutely not required. There will always be free content on this channel. But also, I am hosting a tournament over, between Dueling Book and Remote Duel, depending on what style you guys want to do. So if you guys want to check out the Facebook page, links to everything will be down in the description below. You go to the Facebook page, and there you will find the event for the tournament if you guys want to actually be able to use the cards that you own and actually play with them. And also for patrons who are at the $10 a month or over, they get free access to the tournament. So go ahead and check that out if you guys are interested. But anyways, let's get on into the ban list discussion. So mainly in this video, I want to kind of go over some cards that I think should be getting hit, as well as other cards that I don't feel like people are either getting correctly what should get hit, or just cards that I think that people are missing, things that that people aren't seeing, and that I'm not just seeing enough of people discussing. So we're going to get into all of that. So first of all, we're just going to kind of go over the, sort of like the bare bones stuff that is definitely going to be getting hit. Obviously, like Smoke Grenade of the Thief. And then there's a little bit of contention between like Dragon Buster Destruction Sword, and in my opinion, I really think that the argument here needs to kind of go to Union Carrier. We've already sort of seen this with the Halqifibrax, that people are saying that Halq needs to get banned, or Link Cross, but they've sort of just gone ahead and banned all of the tuners that can generate tokens and other kinds of advantage. So in my opinion, I think that we're kind of going to be seeing the same thing if we just get rid of the Dragon Buster Destruction Sword, because with that, it really isn't from an overpowered archetype or deck. So I really think that if that card gets left in the format, you're never really going to be seeing like a Buster Blader deck hitting the format and warping it as hard as we've seen this card get splashed into decks like Dragon Link. So besides that, I do think that Union Carrier is going to be sort of a card that ends up being abusable in other ways. There's probably ways that we don't even know about it, but we have seen people using Union Carrier in decks with the Mist Valley Thunderbird and Apex Avian combo, and I think that that stuff just needs to go away. The only downside is that it was only about like 6 or 7 months ago that we got Dual Overload, which is where we got Union Carrier, Halqifibrax, and Anaconda. Those are like the trio of cards that have been really warping the format. So I do think that they're not going to be hitting those quite yet. So in my opinion, I think that Union Carrier for now can stay unbanned, but in the future it probably will be banned, and I think for now they could probably ban the Destruction Sword. As of now, the Apex Avian combo really isn't seeing a whole lot of play. It's just sort of like something that you can splash in with Harpies and whatnot. And it is breakable. It's not an infinite loop of negating, because it is once per chain. So there are ways to kind of break into it. The next obvious things that I think people are talking a lot about are like Smoke Grenade of the Thief, which obviously needs to get banned. We don't really need to spend a lot of time talking about that. Miscellaneousaurus going to 1 is a lot that I've heard about, and I really like that just for a small check on dinos, just to maybe bring them down a bit, because that's really the card that kind of keeps them going, where there's a sort of a moment in their turn that's about to break. I don't know if it necessarily needs to be banned, and Miscellaneousaurus has kind of bopped around on the ban list before. I think a limit for now would be fine, as well as like Scarlet Sanguine for the Eldritch deck. And then another one that other people are talking about, maybe bopping around the limit and forbidden section, is True King of All Calamities. Now, we've had True King of All Calamities for a long time now. People have wanted it banned for a long time, but we still haven't even seen it on like the limited list. So I think for now what we're going to be seeing is True King of All Calamities going to 1 for now, and then after people have been able to play around with Virtual World and these other decks that can summon it out for a while, then we're going to be seeing it banned. In my personal opinion, I would like True King of All Calamities at 1. That means that you can kind of take down some of the other cards in the extra deck and play a little bit more of a versatile strategy and mainly focus on the Virtual World cards. That means that you can play 2 copies of the level 9 Virtual World card. That way that you're actually focusing on what the deck is supposed to do, because, setting up the Shen Shen as a walking macrocosmos is still really good. So I think that if we see True King of All Calamities going to 1, that means that you're going to be leaving that behind in the extra deck. You're not going to be playing the Cloud Castle, and then we're going to be seeing at least 2 copies of the Virtual World Shen Shen, which I would actually be pretty excited about playing. Then for the rest of our limits, which everyone has been discussing, is all between Orcus, Salamangreat, and Sky Striker. Those 3 decks were basically running the format forever back in like 2019 and whatnot. So I believe that people would be excited to see those cards come back up, see the decks come back, because they already own the cards and they are pretty beloved decks. So I think that bringing the Orcus Harp Horror back to 1 would be fine. The one thing that I would say that I would maybe like would be either a limit or a ban on Orchestrated Babble. I'm not sure what a limit would even do to the deck, but Orchestrated Babble just blows my mind that people think that Orcus isn't busted at times, because it just basically says you can use every one of your Orcus cards that's in the graveyard or your Link monsters as quick effects, which is absolutely bonkers that you can turn an entire archetype on just as quick effects just from having the 1 field spell. I know that the field spell is really good, but in my opinion, if you bring Orcus Harp Horror to 1, or even if you bring it back to 3, something maybe has to be done about Orchestrated Babble, or at least the Galatea, in my opinion. Then for Salamangreat, obviously people want, there's at least been discussion about bringing Mirage Stalio back. I think that a lot of people didn't even really care for Mirage Stalio, and now with the combos that you can go through with getting out Access Code Talker, I really think that Salamangreat could get Mirage Stalio back. I think that for the other 2 cards that are on the limited list to come back for Salamangreats, there would have to be quite a bit of power creep in the future. But, seeing Gazelle back would be really cool. I think that that's just going to have to wait for now. Then besides that, Sky Striker, Mobilize, Engage, people are talking about maybe that coming back to 1. I would like to see that. I never ended up playing Sky Striker, but I had friends who did, and I absolutely hate playing up against the deck, but I do think that it is pretty cool, and overall getting the Engage back to 1 would be a big power boost to the deck. We're obviously not seeing it in the top tier decks of the format, so the thing with these limited or the ban list is that you have to bring certain decks down, but if you can bring a few decks up, that's also interesting. That way you get a really diverse format. And right now we do have a really diverse format. Overall, this has been better than playing over in the summer, during COVID. In the summertime, it was nothing but Adamancipator and Eldritch, and now we actually have quite a bit of decks that are sitting at the top. Next is the discussion for Electromite to come back to 1, which is probably going to be happening. That way they can market more towards the Pendulum players in future sets that are coming out. And then the one that I've seen just a tiny little bit of discussion about, which I'm really excited about, is Thunder Dragon Colossus. Now, some people are saying that they want this card to go to 1, and I agree. I don't think, Thunder Dragon's not doing anything right now. If you want to limit something else in the deck, that's fine. The only downside is that Konami doesn't like to, they don't like to clutter the ban list if they don't have to, except for Halqifibrax in that matter. They've added so many tuners to the ban list because of Halqifibrax. However, like if they take Thunder Dragon Colossus and move it to the limited list, could they take something else from the engine and put it in the limited, semi-limited? Maybe. I think I would be interested in seeing that, not even just because I'm a Thunder Dragon player, but because I play Battery Man, and Battery Man can actually utilize Thunder Dragon Colossus. So I think that would be a fun boost to basically any of the Thunder decks that can utilize it. And then lastly, I think that this is probably definitely going to be happening, is the ABC Buster Dragon. Totally awesome. And then Graf and Seer all coming off the unlimited list, which is going to be kind of funny because then we're going to be seeing Destiny Hero Malicious sitting by himself on the semi-limited list. I don't think that they're going to move him around at all because, he's sitting there perfectly at 2. I think it would be really neat if they did bump him up to 3, because obviously Elemental Hero really isn't doing anything either. Elemental Hero just Hero in general, keeps getting so much new support every single year, and it ends up not mattering. So if they did want to just get rid of the semi-limited list, they could bump it back up to 3, which we were tinkering around with 3 or 4 formats ago. But I don't think that it would be the end of the world to do that. However, it does really just help you to extend super easily. So I could see it if they would limit it just to get rid of the semi-limited list. But I don't think that Konami is really, too concerned about what we all think about seeing the semi-limited list. I, for one, don't care, but a lot of other Yu-Gi tubers seem to care that there is a semi-limited list. I think that if it sits at 2 forever, that's probably perfect, but we'll see in the future what happens. So that's going to wrap it up for the discussion about all of the cards that people are talking about. Now I want to move on to some of either the hot takes or just cards that I don't feel like people are really discussing, at least not enough. So one card that I want to just sort of talk a little bit more on is the whole Union Carrier scenario. So like I mentioned, we already have the Mist Valley Apex Avion scenario that we have, as well as the Dragon Buster Destruction Sword. And I feel like there are going to be future scenarios where there's just certain cards that need to stay in their archetype and need to stay in the deck and either be searched throughout their archetype and be in a contained engine, rather than just being in a card that you can spit out of the extra deck. Because we've already sort of seen this with the Nightmare cards, and the 3 Nightmare cards that we generally see are the ones that are pretty fair. We have Nightmare Unicorn, Phoenix, and Cerberus. And Phoenix is a great example because Nightmare Phoenix is basically just a walking MST. So it's basically you get 2 monsters on the board, and if you just cannot get yourself into drawing an MST and you have to get rid of something on the field, then you go into Nightmare Phoenix and then discard a card, pop that spell or trap card, and your problems are over there. And so that's just sort of where Link monsters seem to sort of be going, is that there are these cards that you can sort of use sort of a game mechanic that we've already seen or a card effect that we've already seen and sort of do that through a Link monster. But unfortunately, with the dual overload trio with Hulk, Anaconda, as well as Union Carrier, things are just getting a little bit too far out of hand. And so my personal wish would be to see Union Carrier banned in the next format, and for now I think we can live with just the Dragon Buster Destruction Sword. And then I think once Union Carrier does find its way to the ban list, which it probably will, because like I said, there will be new cards that are printed that just shouldn't be shot out of the deck just like that with Union Carrier. So I do think that eventually we'll get hit, and then we can get the Dragon Buster Destruction Sword back, possibly, and then Buster Blader fans will rejoice. So while we're still on the topic of the dual overload monsters, why don't we move on to the next target that everyone's talking about, which is, what do we ban? Halqifibrax, Link Cross, Martial Metal Marcher, or Herald of the Arclight? In my opinion, Herald of the Arclight has kind of had a target on its head for a long time now. It's got 3 really solid effects. It's an Omni Negate. It stops people from, pitching stuff to the graveyard, as well as gets you a ritual spell or monster when it hits the graveyard. So in general, it was always used just sort of for its send to graveyard effect in ritual spam decks, but now it's seeing play for its actual effects. And just the advantage that you can kind of gain through all of the Link Cross stuff is pretty ridiculous. But in my opinion, it is the least of all of the offenders because it's not what's really facilitating all of this stuff. Sort of what a lot of people have been talking about is possibly hitting the cut. Possibly what a lot of people have been talking about is hitting the Marshall Metal Marcher. Now, the one downside to this that I don't really see this maybe happening is because he just did get reprinted in the Gold Series set. So we're perhaps not going to be seeing a ban on him quite yet. I'm not totally sure about that. Konami just doesn't seem to usually ban cards right after they print them. They, like we just saw with the Rusty Bardishes, that they actually unbanned him. That way they could reprint him and sort of promote sales for the Phantom Rage set, so we could get the new Phantom Knight support. So I do think that Marshall Metal Marcher might be safe. So for that reason, I'm thinking that they might actually be hitting the Link Cross. Link Cross is banned in the OCG, so I could see them possibly hitting the Link Cross, leaving Halqifibrax, because they've already shown us that they don't really want to hit Halq, and that they're willing to sort of ban a whole bunch of tuners for now until we finally ban Halqifibrax. And the Link Cross is really what ends up setting up all of this crazy stuff. You know, it gets you your and the Link Cross is really what seems to be sort of setting up all of these degenerate combos. Like with the Halqifibrax, you end up getting that tuner, and then once that tuner hits the graveyard, then its effect is live again. And so then that was where Mecha Phantom Beast O-Line was kind of being a problem. However, once you extend into that Link Cross, and then you go into the Marshall Metal Marcher and all that sort of stuff, then Marshall Metal Marcher summons back a tuner, then you go into Herald of the Arclight, then you still have your tuner on board, and then you can use that for link plays or synchro or whatever you need it to do. So overall, I think that Link Cross is the one who takes the extension and keeps extending it further. So I think that we are going to be seeing Link Cross getting banned on this next list. That's what I think is going to be happening, but we definitely don't know. Konami definitely has been surprising us over the past year, so who knows what's going to be happening. And so now I want to thank you guys for, again, watching the video. We are not done yet, but I figured I would treat you guys with probably my biggest hot take for the video. Again, let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this, but this is not what I want. This is just sort of a ban list prediction right here, is that I think sooner or later, possibly on this ban list, Konami is going to be hitting Infinite Impermanence. Now, you might be kind of wondering why, but we just saw in the last ban list that they were willing to ban Called by the Grave, which was basically to promote the past sales of Triple Tactical Talents, which came out in Rise of the Duelist. So they already figured that they wanted our money for that. And then they limited the Called by the Grave, as well as we have other cards coming out in the future, like Crossout Designator, which essentially kind of does the same thing as Called by the Grave. So I think that in the future, they are probably going to be bringing Called by the Grave back, but this was all sort of to promote sales. I think that in general, the card design of Called by the Grave is really not that broken, so I think we were all really shocked by that. However, with Infinite Impermanence, this has been seeing play in basically every single competitive deck, as well as now budget players are sort of slowly being able to get their hands on it. The card is still surprisingly sitting at $20 a piece, even though it just got reprinted in the gold set, and it's had 3 other printings. So with a card that's had 4 high rarity printings, it's pretty nuts that it's still sitting at 20 bucks. But that's because it basically is an effect veiler that you can use, but it's a trap card. And then for some reason, you're able to activate it from hand as long as you have no other cards on the field. So, and that's why, in my opinion, I think that this card is, I don't think that the card is broken at all. However, it is seeing so much competitive play, and Konami has been giving us other printings of really solid trap cards. And, you can't deny that the whole activating the effect from the hand is a thing that, Konami won't take note of eventually. Like, it's not our fault that they printed the card. However, I could see them in the near future banning it because we've already had really good trap cards such as Warning Point and even Titanicider printed in the last 2 sets I believe at least Titanicider came out, and it was in either Rise of the Duelist or in Eternity Code. Also, another really good card that was recently printed in the Rise of the Duelist set was Ice Dragon's Prison. Now that I'm thinking about it, Titanicider was in Eternity Code, but yeah, Ice Dragon's Prison, a really great spot removal card, as well as just a great interruption. So, sort of like Konami's argument could be for banning Infinite Impermanence, that we already have Ice Dragon's Prison, the Titanicider, as well as now we have the Warning Point. So who really knows what they're going to be doing here? And so I'm not totally sure what we're going to be seeing for trap cards and whatnot in future sets, but also keep in mind that, Called by the Grave Limited, now basically every competitive player has 3 copies of Triple Tactical Talents. All of these cards respond to monster effects. However, there aren't really great ways to interact with Infinite Impermanence being activated. So I think that possibly, in order to promote, again, the sale of like Triple Tactical Talents, which was already a few months ago, and like Crossout Designator in the future, they'll perhaps end up actually banning Infinite Impermanence, which means that you have to rely on those kinds of cards. And so I think that that could be the next big curveball that Konami ends up throwing us. So you guys heard it here first. Infinite Impermanence banned either on this list or on the next ban list. I don't know if they don't ban it now or after the next ban list, I don't know if we'll ever see it get banned. However, I do think that with cards like Red Reboot and whatnot, like there is potential for this card to get banned because it can be activated from the hand. We haven't seen a reprint of Evenly Matched yet, so I don't think that they're going to end up hitting that card, but Infinite Impermanence definitely does have the potential to possibly get hit because there's not really any great way to counter it right now, and we're seeing so much play about it. Everyone has a copy of it by now. People have spent their money on it and they've made the investment, and that's kind of what Konami likes to do is they, we make the investment and then they kind of pull it away. So, we might be seeing that here sometime soon. Now, the next card that I want to talk about is a bit of a hot take, but in my opinion, I actually just made sure that I had a play set of this card the other day. But a card that a few people have been talking about is Max C, possibly either getting limited or going all the way up to 3. This would be a big check on combo decks because what Max C does is that for every time that you special summon, your opponent gets to draw cards equal to the number of monsters that you summon. So basically, you go a full Dragon Link combo, and then on your opponent's starting hand, they have about 25 cards in their hand. So this would be a huge check to certain combo decks. Guard Dragon LP has also been another card in contention which should get banned. In my opinion, either the Guard Dragon LP or the Dragoonity Knight Romulus would be another good hit because Romulus is so good at searching and whatnot. But, Max C, again, this is a card that, could get, it can be negated by the effects of Called by the Grave, Crossout Designator, and Triple Tactical Talents. So would they bring this card back? Probably. Are there ways to stop it? Absolutely. So, in my opinion, they do have Max C at 3 in the OCG. I think that we could end up seeing it, and this could be, a solid replacement for Infinite Impermanence. If, they end up doing that, I could really see this happening in the future. So, this is not a market watch video by any means, but in my opinion, I think that you should own a playset of Max C. They're sitting at about, $10 a card, so you probably should get a full playset. That way you have them for when the time comes, because we saw how the prices of Harpy's Feather Duster boosted up after the card was put to limited, and if the card is ever unlimited, which I really doubt, then we're going to have to prepare for that financially as well. Now, the next card is a card that I have seen absolutely no discussion about, and that is the Utopic Zexal and Numeron combos. I cannot believe that Konami actually even printed this, obviously making Utopic Zexal, that happened a long time ago, and that's sort of something that they've probably thought was a little bit too hard to accomplish. But then you go ahead and print the whole Numeron engine, which is basically a one-card combo. You go Wall, Field Spell, and it's just then you get out four of the XZ monsters, and even if you go into an interruption on one of them, they can still, if you Ghost Ogre it, then all you need is 3 of the XZ monsters to go into the Utopic Zexal, and and all of your problems are solved. So in my opinion, this is something that should get hit. I just think that Utopic Zexal has to get banned because like the rest of the Numerons, like it's just sort of like a battle engine. It can easily be stopped, but I think that Utopic Zexal is just something that has to go. So now we just have to kind of move on to the limits, and there's just sort of two topics that I want to talk about here, and that is just sort of in general that not many people have actually been talking about the whole Red Eyes Dark Dragoon engine getting hit, and it possibly won't, but again, in my opinion, I just think that dual overload was a big mistake because, like I said, Nightmare Phoenix is your MST. You just basically can slap it out of the extra deck and boom, you have an MST. That is totally fine. It's not broken in any kind of way, but Halqifibrax, Union Carrier, you just get to take these cards right out of the deck and utilize them. And Verte Anaconda is no different. You just pull a Super Poly or like an Instant Fusion out of the deck. Cards that have sort of bounced around the ban list and stuff because they're very good. Or you go ahead and you pitch Red Eyes Fusion to the graveyard, and then bam, you have a Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. Now, in my opinion, I don't think that they're going to be hitting Anaconda, perhaps. I think that in the future, Anaconda is what probably just should get hit, but even doing like a limit to the Red Eyes Fusion would possibly be a good thing to do, because if you limit the Red Eyes Fusion, then that means that you get to do the whole Anaconda and Red Eyes Fusion thing one time, which also means that it's basically a limit on how many Red Eyes Dark Dragoons that people are going to be playing. And if Red Eyes Dark Dragoon is put to 1 and Red Eyes Fusion, or mainly if Red Eyes Fusion gets put to 1, then I don't think that we're going to be seeing it as much. So my big problem with this, though, is that, let's say that if, like, the Utopic Zexal combo gets hit, as well as, like, the Dragon Buster Destruction Sword, then, like, let's say that VFD and Dragoon end up getting limited, then that probably means that we're not going to be really needing as many of, like, those Kaijus, Super Polys, and, like, other spot removal cards in the side deck, which could end up being sort of a downfall because, like if you go to a tournament and you're not expecting those kinds of cards and you're not playing with like Kaijus or whatever your spot removal card of choice is, then the big downside is that you're not going to be prepared for that. And so it's almost better to either have them at full power in the format or just be to be completely wiped out. So it could be sort of like a two-edged sword. We're going to have to sort of see how this faces out. But, I would definitely say keep the Kaijus on hand because we don't really know where things are going to be going from here. And now lastly, for the limits, the final point that I want to bring up is sort of addressing Dogmatica Invoked. So Dogmatica Invoked has been sort of sitting around that tier 2 status, but I do think that if all of the other decks like Dragon Link, Dinos, Infernal Knights and all that stuff end up getting hit, then Dogmatica is definitely going to rise to the top. So I do think that what they would need to do is to hit the Invoked engine a little bit. I don't think that they're going to hit anything in the Dogmatica engine, and really the Dogmatica engine in general is fairly small and self-contained, and like if you end up like opening the Invoked engine with no Dogmaticas, or you open with the Dogmaticas and no Invoked, then you do usually end up coming into a bit of a problem. So I do think that just sort of hitting the consistency of one of the engines is going to be the best thing for them to do. And for that reason, that's why I think they're going to be hitting Magical Meltdown, and they're going to be putting that to 1. I don't think that it's the right time to really ban Magical Meltdown because, again, like I said, that it's just a tier 2 deck. So, like, if you're just going to be limiting Miscellaneousaurus and some of the other decks, just sort of bringing them down a little bit, you don't need to just like bash on Dogmatica Invoked. So I think that putting either the Magical Meltdown to 1 or maybe hitting something in the Shaddoll engine might be another good thing to do. Like, obviously Shaddoll Schism is a new card, but it is really great just for being able to fusion summon during your opponent's turn. And obviously, if we are talking about the Shaddoll engine, we need to discuss everyone's favorite waifu serpent riding fusion monster, which is Shaddoll Winda. We could definitely be seeing Shaddoll Winda getting hit on the ban list. Getting limited really wouldn't do anything, so I do think that this card would end up getting banned if that's the route that they go with. Really, like, the invoked engine is what kind of starts sort of piecing everything together, because it helps you to get your stuff set up. You end up, like, that's your normal summon of the deck, and then you end up linking away going into Salamangreat Almirage, and then the Secure Gardena, so you end up getting some attributes set up in the graveyard, and then the Dogmaticas help to pile on with the rest of that. And then, so I do think that maybe the Invoked would still be the best spot to go with, but I could still see Shaddoll Winda getting banned on this next ban list. But in my opinion, I think I would still prefer them just to limit the Magical Meltdown. So anyways, guys, I think that's all the thoughts that I have for today. Possibly a couple of hot takes on what I think should be getting banned, or at least getting banned in the future. Infinite Impermanence, you guys heard it here first. And, Max C, I'm still not totally sure if I want Max C back yet. It could be sort of like a thing where you really wish that you have it, and then once you have it, you're really unhappy that you have it. But we'll have to see in the future what we end up getting. But I could definitely see that coming back, and I really just hope that they address, like, the Link Cross and Halka Fibrax combos, as well as just sort of hitting something with the Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. I absolutely hate playing up against Dragoon, and it's just as bad as, like, the VFD, and hopefully that they're going to be limiting that as well. But anyways, guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know down in the comment section what you guys are thinking. What other cards did I not discuss that you guys think need to get hit or come off the ban list? I, for one, would really be interested in picking up Burning Abyss if we can get Seer and Graph back up to 3. Who knows? Hopefully we'll be able to see what these decks look like within the next couple of weeks. So we should be getting the ban list either on December 15th or a few days afterwards. And yeah, good luck to everybody on your decks. Hopefully your deck doesn't get absolutely trashed on the ban list, and we'll catch you guys next time.